Yes. Good morning. Welcome to Art of Being Favi. I'm your host, Favi Marti. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about making mistakes, and specifically one that's kind of embarrassing for me. It's kind of funny, but it's a little embarrassing. I'm sorry, I completely drew a blank. What was I saying? Oh yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing, but I want to share it with you guys because it's going to lead me to another point that's very important to me. Something that I want to share with you guys, something that I've come across more recently in my never-ending search for, what's that thing called? Perfection. Nah. In my never-ending search of personal development.
So you might be like, Favi, go ahead and cut to the chase. We don't care, blah, blah.
Some of you might be like, Favi, you're supposed to be Mr. Perfect. You're supposed to have it all figured out. How you gonna tell me that you know stuff about life and then turn around and make a mistake? Okay, I know that's enough of that. You guys don't come to see my silliness. You don't come to see me for me. I'm a good actor. At least I like to think. Anyways, I won't make you guys wait any longer. So this is what happened. I'm at this big box store. I'm not going to name any names, but it's one of those big box locations that you got to pay a yearly membership for. Used to have one by my house back in the day, and so it was just kind of convenient, kind of cheap. You know, I'm a single guy. I buy, several pounds of meat, lasts me a couple weeks, whatever, And I went to a location. Normally I only go to one location, but I went to a location that I've never been to before. And I'm up there and I go and pick up something. It was like a thing of like mineral water, flavored mineral water. And so I'm walking around and I'm like, God, my stomach wasn't agreeing with me. I don't even remember what I ate. It must have been, like some bad chicken or some bad Chipotle or something. I don't know. But anyways, it's all churning in my stomach and I'm like, man, I've got to go to the bathroom. So bad. I go to the bathroom area, and usually I'm used to the bathrooms being on one side. And, every other store that I can remember going to, the bathrooms are on that side for the guys. And I think you guys know where I'm going with this. So I get to the bathrooms, and there's this big old line right in front of the bathrooms of a bunch of people that are waiting to clock in. These are employees. So I'm not really that big of a fan of being around large groups, especially right now with the whole COVID thing. You know what? Everybody has their own tolerance. Me personally, I try to stay away from people, and I try to be cautious. I'm not really into the whole thing. That's neither here nor there. It's not really important for this discussion. I just want to let you guys know, whatever you choose is fine with me. Just use common sense. On top of that, I'm a little bit introverted. Actually, I'm an ambivert, which that means is I'm a little bit introverted and I'm a little bit extroverted. It all kind of depends on the situation, where I'm at, what's going on, and how I feel. So, I kind of rush around these people and I just kind of push the door open. I walk into the bathroom. I'm like, man, this bathroom is huge. It's cut in half, so there's like this wall and I see the sinks and, what I assume to be like urinals and whatnot. And then, there's the other half is just all stalls. I'm like, great, I can find a toilet. Awesome. So I'm walking in, I'm getting ready to push the stall door. Bing, out of the corner of my eye, this lady pops out of another stall, walks right past me. I did one of those, wait a minute, what just happened? I turn around, she turns around. She's like, you're in the women's restroom. I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense now. Okay, so not that big of a deal. It was really more embarrassing than anything to me, but it was kind of funny and it helps me illustrate the point that I want to point out to you guys today. One of the things that I've dealt with, one of the things I've struggled with over the years is there's a part of me that's very critical of myself. But that part of me, it eats away at me and it constantly brings up all the little mistakes that I make, all the little stupid things that, I've done here or there, things that we've all done. And this part's very critical of me. And so that's one of those things that I've dealt with over the years that's really bothered me. And it's one of those things that I'm working on now. I'm working with, I should say, in order to become a better person, in order to feel better about myself, in order to feel good, in order to not feel that anxiety whenever I want to go do something, but I'm too afraid to look like an idiot doing it. You can call me an idiot. I don't care. But that's something that in the past, just the thought of being called an idiot, man, that scared me so much that I try to avoid conversations with most people. I try to avoid, anything going into, events and stuff like that. It's not really one of those things that really bothered me growing up too much. I mean, I guess it did a little bit, but it's one of those things that gradually got more and more difficult for me. The main thing is there's this part of me that's always bringing up all my mistakes, all my faults. It's constantly criticizing me. And if that sounds a little crazy to you, well, I think most of you will agree with me that there's always part of you that might want to do this and part of you that might want to do that. That's a constant thing, at least for I think most people, when they're trying to make decisions. If you're ever trying to make a decision and it's taking you a little while, you're clearly torn between two things, and part of you wants to go this way and part of you wants to go that way. And sometimes this way is right, sometimes this way is right, sometimes they both have their benefits. It is what it is. Anyways, what I'm getting to is it's by working with this part, not necessarily. For the longest time I've fought against this part. I really hated it, really hated that I always felt terrible about making mistakes. That it sounds weird because I say that I'm transparent and I'm pretty open about whenever I make mistakes. Well, those are two different parts of me. You see, there's the part of me that was affected by some trauma growing up, where I feel the need to be upfront and honest about any little, even if it's like nothing. Well, that's good sometimes. People don't need to know every little thing, every little problem that you got going on. They've got their own problems to deal with. They've got their own. Now, that's not to say that if you're dealing with something, you don't talk to somebody about it. It can be very cathartic to talk to somebody about whatever's bothering you. Anyways, going back to this thing, if you're getting a little weirded out, if you're like me, I was very skeptical about this whole parts thing, this whole there being different parts of me thing. It kind of makes you sound like, that wasn't me, that was Patricia. It kind of makes it sound like that one movie. I don't remember if it was like Switch or Twitch or something like that. But it's not. Like I said, whenever you're dealing with trying to figure out which way you should go, this way or that way, and you're kind of torn in between making a decision, that's usually when it makes itself more visible that there's different parts of you with different interests. And no, I'm not going off the deep end on this. This is actual science. There's actual science behind this. It's a model of psychology called IFS. And what IFS stands for is Internal Family Systems Therapy. I guess that's IFST. But Internal Family Systems. That's basically all it is there's all these parts of you. Some of them might have been formed whenever you were growing up and you were dealing with things. Some of them might have been formed whenever you were growing up and dealing with things that, might have been uncomfortable, might have been a little traumatizing. Could have been, like me when I was in kindergarten and first grade. I was very self-conscious about having to read aloud because I didn't really know how to read. And, kids would make fun of me. Kids, But that was one of those things that formed in me, is this part that was afraid to read and make mistakes in front of a large group of people. That's not to say that I don't have that fear anymore. I do, but it doesn't really bother me as much. I've learned to become friends with it, and it's something that we're working on together. Now, I know it sounds weird when I say we're working on it together, but from the IFS standpoint, or the internal family systems standpoint of psychology, there's all these different parts, and then there's the self. And the self is you at your core. It's who you are. It comes from the standpoint that at your core, you're this selfless, intelligent being that has no problem making decisions and acts pretty well according to your age. If you look at most people, I'm not saying everybody, but most people usually, they might have a lot of intelligence in terms of academia, in terms of, this is what I learned through school, but the emotional intelligence isn't really there. I think that's what they call emotional IQ or EQ or whatever, which is one of those soft skills that is gradually growing more and more in importance in this day in society. It's one of those things that differentiates you in the market. But enough of that. I'm sorry, I feel like I keep going into these little trenches and there's more and more to explain. It's a ton of stuff that I want to talk to you guys about, but I'm going to spread it out. It's a ton of stuff that I want to talk to you guys about, but it's something that I'm going to spread out over a bunch of different videos just so you guys don't get bored out of your mind, so you guys can quickly watch this video and then you have something to look forward to the next week. Anyways, through this model of psychology, I've been working on myself, and I've been working on, helping out parts of myself. And one of those big parts for me, as I was saying, is a part of me that's very critical. The part of me that says, no, don't raise your hand in class, or nah, don't try that. You've never tried that before. You're probably just gonna make a mistake and get laughed at. For my example, would get to some place and would go really far, and then all of a sudden it was like I was having that hard time taking that leap of faith. It served its purpose. It's served its purpose in trying to keep me safe and trying to what it thinks would keep me alive and surviving. So it's not a bad thing. A lot of the times, if you work with these different parts of you, whatever you're struggling with or whatever you're dealing with in life, it's not necessarily that there's anything wrong with you. The reason I say that is because there's, like, especially in the whole personal development field, there's this whole attitude about, oh, you need to be positive all the time, and if you're not positive and you don't, you can't manifest these things into existence. Well, if you're ignoring the part of you that's not necessarily completely positive or what you think is positive, then you're ignoring a part of you, and that part isn't going to go away. It's just going to be ignored. It's going to show itself in one form or another down the line. That's why you see a lot of people that might be very successful at doing things in one aspect or another, but then they end up with like these drug problems, or they end up with these alcohol problems. What I'm trying to say is they might be focusing on this thing so that they can avoid this thing, because this thing over here, way too scary to deal with, at least for whatever part that is of them. So for me, I've been dealing with that critical part of myself. I've been dealing with multiple parts of me and trying to work with them and trying to become a better person. And so one of those things was I really hated that part of myself. I really hated the part of me that was very critical. In my mind, it always came as somebody else's voice who was very critical of me when I was a little kid. And it really bothered me. But in reality, that was just a part of me. And I ended up realizing that I had to embrace that part of me. I had to allow myself enough space to get curious about it rather than trying to bash it, trying to ignore it, trying to push it away. If you develop that conversation with that part of yourself, then you end up realizing over time that that's just a part of you that had to be there in order for you to survive. At least that's the impression that part had, and that's the only reason why it's around. For me, that part existed a lot of the time so that I wouldn't get ridiculed by other people, or I wouldn't get yelled at, or I wouldn't get verbally or physically abused. It's one of those things that allowing it to learn more about me, letting it know, hey, I'm X amount of years, I'm like 30 years old. This is me. I understand that, it was really hard dealing with all that from a very young age, but I'm here for you. Just being compassionate towards that part and asking it, what is it that you're trying to protect? And it's usually a part of you that's pretty hurt, or was pretty hurt at that point in time and got stuck in that time period. And then you end up dealing with that part, and it's one of those things that it becomes more of a nurturing thing and just kind of being there for that part of you. If it helps out any, think of it as a younger part of you that needed you to be there, or needed somebody to be there at that point in time. And a lot of times it's just nurturing it, allowing it to say its piece, and showing it that you can protect it, that you're old enough, you're strong enough, you're big enough to protect it from ever being hurt like that again. Sometimes that's taking it to like a fantasy land, somewhere where that whole situation isn't even in question anymore, and allowing it to know that it doesn't ever have to go back to that bad situation. But like I said, it's backed by science. It's a part of psychology that's been around for like 40 or 50 years now. So there's definitely a lot of research on it. If you're one of those people that really likes to get into research, I've got a book title link down below for you. If you're kind of like the self-help junkie and you like books that are a decent length, but you don't really have time for all the little details, I'll have another book link down below. And then if you're like most people and you don't have all that much time, or you don't feel that you have all that much time, there's going to be a third book linked down below, and that book's maybe only like 100 pages long. It's very short, and if you get the audio version of it, I don't recommend you get an audio version of it because I think the book has some illustrations so that you can visualize it a little better. But if you want to get the audio version of it, there's one available, and I think it's like 3 hours long. If that take 20 or 30 minutes a day, you have it done in like a week or two. But yeah, that's one of the things I've been up to so far. You know, I've been working on trying to become at peace with all these different parts of me. So that's why I haven't spent a lot of time on, you know, making videos. I've been really busy doing other things. I do plan on getting back, and I know I said that last time, and then I got the Bell's palsy thing. I'm going to make the commitment of posting once a week. I'll see you guys on the next one. Make sure you hit that like button. If you didn't like the video, go ahead and hit that dislike button. I don't really care either way. If there's something you want me to talk about, if there's anything you want to learn about, or if there's any experiences that you're having or dealing with, go ahead and hit me down in the comments section. If it's something a little more personal where you really don't want to put yourself out there, that's fine. I completely get it. You can feel free to email me from whatever email address you want to. I have the email right here. I don't remember it right now. I think it's favimarty8@gmail.com or something like that. Make sure you guys subscribe so that you can hear more about all my little shenanigans that I've got going on, all the little stuff that I've been getting. Believe me, I've gotten into some stuff over the last few months. You would not believe. It's been a crazy journey. I really want to share it with you guys. Please subscribe. I'll see you guys next week. All right, bye.